I'm Rob, I'm 25 years old, and this is my story. Growing up, my friends and I loved to watch sports. Be hanging out with friends at 7 because that's when the baseball game would start. No matter what the event was, we were watching a game. Same with my family. It was always present in my life. Family events would start at 1 on a Sunday for the football kickoff. And when I was 18 and I found out about daily fantasy sports, it was a no-brainer that I was going to get involved with it.
Maryland's Attorney General wants lawmakers to take a closer look at daily fantasy sports games.
But to the extent that I got involved with it became a problem very quickly. So my friends and I would meet up, we'd be watching the game, we'd have our money on the contests, and it'd be fun. But then at 10 o'clock when that game would end, they'd go to sleep. Win or loss, they didn't care. I did. If I had won money, I wanted to win more. If I had lost money, I wanted to get it back right away. Being an 18-year-old, I didn't have a super high-paying job, so at the time, the idea that I could make money with gambling, it made me so excited, and it made me feel like I absolutely had to keep going. So I got into a good school, and I went down to Washington, D.C. to start my college career when I was 18, but very quickly, I stopped caring about the classes, and I cared about gambling. I'd moved from daily fantasy sports to actually sports betting by this point, and things were a bit of a roller coaster. There were days where I would win money, but of course more days where I would lose money. And where things really began to deteriorate for me was when UMBC upset Virginia in the March Madness tournament that year.
UMBC makes history!
They were the 16 seed and they beat the 1 seed. It was the first time that it ever happened in the tournament's history, and I didn't have a bet on the game. The only thing that might be worse than losing a bet as a problem gambler is not gambling on a game that you would have won. The frustration that I felt from not having money on that game led me to take all the credit that I had with my bookie at the time and put it onto UMBC's next game versus Kansas State, which they, of course, lost.
The history makers are eliminated.
And it was the first time that I was finding myself on a downward trend significantly enough that there was strong financial pressure on me to win my way out of the situation. I was 18 years old, and then for the very first time I found myself in debt that I couldn't dig my way out of on a exhibition spring training baseball game. The things that I was gambling on shifted from the games that I loved to watch with my friends to anything that was on TV. And that pattern would play itself out for the next 4 years following that. I would find myself in debt 6 times over the course of 6 total years gambling that I had to work a second job to dig myself out because I was down so much that I couldn't even see a way to bet my way out of the situation. Things really came to a peak for me on November the 12th of 2022. I would spend 12 hours that day on a gambling binge at a casino and also on my phone, to the extent that I ended up losing enough money that I took 3 cash advances on my credit card, maxing it out, and finding myself working for the next 6 months to follow for 70 to 80 hours a week to pay off that debt. That was the last day that I gambled, because I was standing there in the bathroom of that casino counting the money that I had left, and I thought to myself, I really hope I didn't drop any of this money in my panicked haze of that day. Then I thought, I might as well have dropped that money since I was gonna go out and lose it anyway playing table games, poker, and chasing it with sports bets. That was the first time during that 6-year span with gambling that I recognized that I was never going to make money gambling. But it took me a lot of ups and downs to come to that realization. Following that day, I got myself some help. I started going to support group meetings, and it really began to make a difference in my life to add financial controls and just find some other things to do. But I didn't know quite what I wanted to do. It would turn out that a month later, when a friend of mine stopped coming to our support group meetings, I would realize what it is that gave me meaning in my life, that led me to feel passionate about my time. And I ended up telling him, hey, man, I don't know what the solution is, but I know it's not going back and gambling more. And something that I said clicked with him. He came back in, and that made me feel good for the first time in 6 years, because I had finally done something that wasn't for myself, which led me to eventually begin creating content about my gambling addiction story and recovery journey to try to help other people avoid making the same mistakes with their life that I made with mine. Share this with your friends that gamble because we want to make sure that they're safe while they're doing it. Questions that you can ask yourself to determine if you have a gambling addiction? Let's answer them together. Don't let an early win convince you that you're always going to win. It's easy for me to say that if you have a problem, you should seek help, but I think that a step that is more tangible to make is that if you feel like you have a problem, tell someone about it. Because if you keep it to yourself, it begins to fester and grow. You might know that you have a problem and you might not be ready to seek help today, but if someone else knows that you're going through the situation, those conversations are going to start to flow, and eventually you're going to find yourself getting the help that you need.